Sugar. In this series of 10 popular American classics, I am going to introduce The Old Man and the Sea, a novella written by American author Ernest Hemingway, who was widely considered to be one of the greatest and most influential writers of the 20th century. Ernest Hemingway was born in Oak Park, Illinois in 1899. He spent much of his early life in the Midwest before moving to Paris in the 1920s, where he became part of the expatriate community of writers and artists. Hemingway began his career as a journalist and served as a volunteer ambulance driver during World War I. He later drew on his experiences as a war correspondent and his travels to Europe, Africa, and the Caribbean in his fiction. Hemingway was known for his adventurous and sometimes turbulent personal life, which included multiple marriages, battles with depression, and a reputation as a heavy drinker. He lived in several different countries over the course of his life and was involved in both the Spanish Civil War and World War II. Despite his personal struggles, Hemingway's writing remains widely admired for its honesty, clarity, and power. The Old Man and the Sea is one of Hemingway's most famous literary works, which won the Pulitzer Prize and the Nobel Prize in Literature. The Nobel Committee praised Hemingway for his powerful, style-forming mastery of the art of modern narration, as most recently manifested in The Old Man and the Sea. The award cemented Hemingway's reputation as one of the most important writers of the 20th century, and it remains one of the highest honors in the literary world. Hemingway's other novels include The Sun Also Rises, 1926, A Farewell to Arms, 1929, For Whom the Bell Tolls, 1940. He also wrote numerous short stories and essays, including The Snows of Kilimanjaro, Hills Like White Elephants, and A Clean, Well-Lighted Place. The Old Man and the Sea was written by Ernest Hemingway in 1951 in Cayo Blanco, Cuba, and published in 1952. The story takes place in the Gulf Stream off the coast of Cuba. It follows an aging fisherman named Santiago whose deep connection with the sea, the reverence and respect is described in the novel as follows. He always thought of the sea as la mar, which is what people call her in Spanish when they love her. Sometimes those who love her say bad things of her, but they are always said as though she were a woman. But the old man always thought of her as feminine and as something that gave or withheld great favors, and if she did wild or wicked things it was because she could not help them. This passage captures the dual nature of the sea, beautiful and serene, yet also wild and dangerous. Santiago has gone 84 days without catching a single fish. Because of this disappointing experience, he is now seen by the locals as saleo, that means salty, the worst form of unluckiness. As a result, Manolin, a young man whom Santiago has trained since childhood, is forced by his parents to leave Santiago to work on a luckier boat. But Manolin remains dedicated to Santiago, visiting his shack every night, hauling his fishing gear, preparing food, and talking about American baseball. Determined to break his unlucky streak, Santiago sets out alone on his small skiff far out into the Gulf Stream that is known for a warm and swift Atlantic Ocean current. On the second day, he hooks a huge marlin which he describes as the biggest fish that he had ever seen and bigger than he had ever heard of. As an experienced fisherman, Santiago has spent his life on the sea, and he uses all his knowledge and strength to fight the marlin. The following passage gives a detailed description of the marlin. He lay across the planks of the stern, his head hanging over and the heavy projecting bill of his great jaws dropped to the deck. His gills were working irregularly as his lungs fought for oxygen and his big eyes were glazed and set. But they were still clean and bright. Santiago's struggle with the marlin becomes the focus of the story. For 3 days, Santiago battles with this marlin he caught. He talks to the fish, trying to convince it to give up and come to the surface, showing both respect and empathy for his prey. At the same time, Santiago reflects on his life and the nature of man's struggle against nature. He thinks about his own mortality and his place in the world, wondering if he will be remembered after he dies. Hemingway's descriptions of Santiago's thoughts and feelings are spare but powerful, and they provide insight into the character's personality and motivations. Here is a passage from the novel. The old man's head was clear and good now, and he was full of resolution, but he had little hope. It was too good to last, he thought. I wish it was the end of the day. And a giant marlin to show for it. Despite his exhaustion and pain, Santiago refuses to give up, determined to prove his worth as a fisherman. On the third day, he finally manages to kill the marlin, but his victory is short-lived. As he returns to shore with the marlin tied to his boat, he is attacked by sharks who are attracted by the smell of the fish's blood. Santiago fights off as many sharks as he can, using a harpoon and a makeshift club, but in the end, they devour the entire marlin, leaving him with nothing but its skeleton. He returns to shore empty-handed. However, his courage and determination have not gone unnoticed. The other fishermen at the village marina see the marlin's skeleton and realize the size of the fish that Santiago has caught. They admire his skill and bravery. Marlin is once again free to work with Santiago. Hemingway's portrayal of Santiago is both poignant and inspiring, and his sparse, direct prose captures the physical and emotional pain of Santiago's struggle. Hemingway uses simple language and vivid imagery to create a sense of time and place. His descriptions of the sea and its creatures are both beautiful and haunting. The sea becomes not just a setting, but a character in its own right, reflecting the themes of the novel and the human struggle against nature. Here are some examples of Hemingway's poetic and evocative phrases. The sea is very beautiful, and sometimes it's kind but sometimes it's not. The iridescent bubbles were beautiful. But they were the falsest thing in the sea. The sea was very dark and the light made prisms in the water. The Old Man and the Sea is one of the most widely translated novels in the world. It has been translated into over 60 languages. The book's enduring popularity and its status as a classic of modern literature have made it a favorite among readers around the world. Over the years, The Old Man and the Sea has been adapted into several movies. There have been many other adaptations of The Old Man and the Sea for the stage and radio as well. Some notable adaptations are listed as follows. The Old Man and the Sea, 1958. Directed by John Sturges and stars Spencer Tracy, it was nominated for 3 Academy Awards, including Best Actor. The Old Man and the Sea, 1990, directed by Judd Taylor, it's a made-for-TV movie starring Anthony Quinn. The Old Man and the Sea, 1999, an animated movie directed by Alexander Petrov, won the Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film. There have been several documentaries made about The Old Man and the Sea, such as Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea, An American Experience, which was produced by PBS in 1990. Let's end this introduction with the following paragraph from a book review article. No amount of analysis can convey the quality of The Old Man and the Sea. It is a beautifully wrought story, and as in all the best stories, the meaning is not easily extracted. Its success is due in part to Hemingway's laconic style, which suggests much more than it states, and which perfectly evokes the existential struggle of Santiago the fisherman. Written by Charles Poore and published in the New York Times in 1952. This timeless masterpiece is highly recommended for anyone who is interested in great literature or in the human experience.